ancestor liberation. In the beginning of human history with the Garden of Eden, God's original world of freedom, liberty, and conscience and relationship with God was to be established. It was to be a world where the powerful archangels were to be the servants of the children of God. However, due to the fall, Eve committed adultery with the archangel and tempted Adam into sinning against God. Thus, the world of Satan's domination over mankind was established, and history has shown centralized archangelic powers, either governmental, religious, or financial, use artificial methods to rule over mankind, sometimes taking freedoms gradually and sometimes eliminating them by brute force. God's kingdom of heaven on earth must be established where the artificial structures of power representing Satan shall never again rule over mankind and humanity. In order to establish this, the tribal messiahships and the help of all the ancestors in the spirit world must come together as one. After the fall of Adam and Eve, the history of restoration began. God yearned for a day in which his children could return back to his bosom. He had to witness the trials and tribulations of his chosen people wax and wane in faith and righteousness. After the providential foundation for the Messiah had been fulfilled, God sent Jesus Christ to save humanity and become the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But due to the faithlessness of the people, Jesus was crucified, and thus the kingdom could only be substantiated spiritually. Jesus intended for God's kingdom to come physically, as he had commanded in Matthew 6, pray every day, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus' spiritual children were the inheritors of the gospel, and thus his kingdom would only be spiritual. If Jesus' physical children inherited the gospel, an actual line of kings would continue from Jesus Christ, the living representative of God. But since this kingship was not substantiated, the Church of Christianity would have to continue the spiritual kingdom building process and preach the gospel to the world until his return. However, through the process of the institutionalization of Christianity, especially after the Roman Emperor Constantine accepted Christianity, the church took on Roman pagan and non-biblical modalities, eventually becoming corrupt and seeking to build the kingdom centered on the Catholic Church, which became a state-type Christianity, where the church was a state and the state became the church. Eventually, by the 7th century, the church had become so immoral and corrupt that God allowed for the growth of Islam to be a hammer that would punish Christianity and force the corrupt elements out of the church. Within 150 years of Muhammad's death, Islam had spread over all of Arabia, North Africa, and by the 11th century, Islam had conquered Spain and were moving to take the Byzantine Christian Empire and all of Europe. As Islam grew, the culture of forced child marriage and selling, honor killings, crippling misogyny, and sex slavery of the conquered spread. These cultural extensions of the life of Islam's Prophet Muhammad created a devastating wake of suffering and death upon Christians and non-Christians alike. Historians estimate that over 150 million Africans were exploited as slaves, and another 50 million people from other countries, including white Europe, were exploited and died under the slave trade of Islam. 2/3 of these slaves were women, or nearly 132 million women were sold into slavery for sexual exploitation. These exploited lives are forgotten in the pages of history, and in the modern day, Satan has used political Satanism and political correctness to cover up the millions of innocent men, women, and children who were brutally exploited under Islamic conquest and civilization. God grieves in seeing this type of suffering, and today the souls of those who have suffered and died in such a soul-crippling manner will be liberated to enter into the higher realms of the spirit world, where they can be remembered and recognized as being the innocent victims of such a brutal Islamic slave trade. In Chunsangan 9:13, Father says, the spirit world is in your hands. Your relatives are in your hands. Not only your relatives, but even your country is in your hands. Even the task of setting the right tradition for your descendants is in your hands. You should always keep this in mind. Whether you as a single person accomplish or not, you will determine whether your descendants can be chosen, the chosen people of liberation. You should always be thinking that you are representing 3 ages. For this reason, you have to realize that the spirit world is in your hands and that your ancestors are at your mercy. If we gather the past, present, and future together and put physical and spiritual realms together and lead them, they will come running to you. We should accomplish that mission. The world is now changing rapidly, and many evil people are dying in accidents. Suddenly they are dead. Now there is no indemnity. An age has come where decisions and punishments are instantly rendered. You have to straighten out your act. Who is doing this? The devil is not bringing our indemnity. Your own ancestors are dealing with it. The standard of blessing I have now given you is equal for you all. If you fall away from this standard, when you go to the spirit world, the standard should not be lost. Since you have to stand in a certain spiritual position, you should be taken to the spirit world in order to prevent your losing that standard. Such an age will come. Your ancestors will give you both the illness and the medicine. You should receive your ancestors' cooperation with a fervent heart, greater than heaven and earth. Everything goes in this way. 3 generations are included. Your ancestors are the first generation, you are the second generation, and your children are the third generation. You have to bind them together with a fervent heart, so that your descendants, the third generation on earth, who are born in you, can even reach to your parents and ancestors in heaven. Your ancestors in the spirit world will look down and want to come with the desire to assist their descendants of whom they are proud. That is why many of your ancestors come down to you. This is a realm of religion based on the tribes that transcends denominations. Do you understand? Your ancestors want to follow you while placing their trust and love in you. That is why they want to devote themselves in assisting you. Even your ancestors are given salvation through you. For that reason, they wish to actively support you. Therefore, in your local area, work hard without rest. One iron rule that you must know is that you have to do more than any loyal servant, patriot, filial child, or church minister has done who lived in your area. If you make greater efforts than they did, they will all support you. That is the condition. If you do that, you will be standing in the place which is above the realm that Satan can accuse. Therefore, Satan will not oppose you, and with the support of the spirit world, your ancestors will appear to your family and relatives and spiritually push them to join the Unification Church. What happens is that your grandfather comes to assist you and goes witnessing for you. Reading. Therefore, I, Hyungjin Moon, the crown successor and representative body of the cosmic true parents of heaven and earth, and full inheritor of the kingship of God, as a direct chosen blood lineage of true Father, with all the authority endowed in me by true Father, the Messiah, Lord at the second advent, and King of kings, hereby declare the liberation of 210 generations of all the ancestral lines in the spirit world represented here with all their faithful descendants. Further, with the authority endowed in me by true Father, I declare the liberation of all historical men, women, and children who died due to the conquest and slave trade of Islam, to be separated from Satan's claim, and to be liberated to leave spirit world of shame and suffering, to enter into the presence of God and the good ancestors. These most innocent human spirits are now freed from their unacknowledged place of being forgotten souls to those who are remembered and named to enter into the presence of the King of Kings in heaven, and to never again be under the dominion and slavery of Satan and his hosts. These ancestors and the millions of forgotten spirits will unite with God in the spirit world and the kingship of God in the physical world to bring about the purging of Satan's authority over this world, and to bring about the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. Satan attacks most ferociously when he is at the brink of defeat. Whatever his attack, the world and the entire cosmic realm stand at this end of days to witness and endure the last persecution of the righteous, and to finally witness the actual coming of the kingdom of God on earth. There is no salvation apart from Christ. Today there is celebration in the spirit world as 210 generations of ancestors, together with the liberated victims of political Islam, return to our true Father in heaven, who is also in our midst at this exact moment in time. The liberated spirits stand as a spiritual army of God to work with God's people, to glorify the King of Kings and to prepare the way for his kingdom of freedom and responsibility, the kingdom of God, Chanilguk, that is quickly coming to this world. 아주, 아주.